Picture a 7-year-old child tiptoeing through the house at 3 a.m., checking to make sure mummy isn't crying again. This child learned that their own needs were secondary to managing the emotional chaos of the adults around them. Carl Jung called this the wounded healer archetype. But what happens when that wound forms before you even have words? Emotional parentification doesn't announce itself with fanfare. It creeps in through subtle expectations. You're too young to understand why daddy gets that look in his eyes, but you learn to read every micro-expression anyway. You become an emotional seismograph, detecting the slightest tremors in the adult world before they become earthquakes. While other children play, you're calculating, measuring, adjusting your behavior to keep the peace. This hypervigilance becomes your operating system. Every room you enter gets scanned for emotional landmines. You learn that your value comes from your ability to manage other people's feelings, not your own. Jung understood that the child who becomes the family therapist carries an invisible wound that never properly heals. The exhaustion is bone deep. You're running emotional IT support for adults, while your own inner child starves. This creates a particular kind of person, one who can read a room instantly, but struggles to know what they actually want. The child who became an adult too soon lives in a permanent state of emergency, always ready to fix someone else's crisis. If this resonates, what you're about to discover might change everything. The signs run deeper than you think. If you're finding value in this, hit subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. The first sign cuts deepest. You apologize for taking up space, sorry for speaking, sorry for needing, sorry for breathing too loudly. Jung called this the shadow self, the part of you that learned to hide. Your parents couldn't handle a real child, so you became invisible. Every apology became armor, a desperate shield against their rejection. But armor becomes prison when you wear it too long. The shame integrated so deep, you forgot it wasn't yours. Your needs weren't burdens. Their inability to meet them was their failure. But the child in you learnt survival meant shrinking. Every sorry became a ritual of self-erasure. The shadow holds this truth. You were worthy of love without apology. Your existence was never the problem. Their emotional immaturity was. But recognizing this pattern is just the beginning of your liberation. Picture a child walking on glass. Every step calculated. Every breath measured. This is your world when raised by parents who exploded without warning. You learn that anger equals danger, not just discomfort, not just conflict, existential threat, abandonment, the end of safety itself. Jung understood this pattern. When caregivers cannot regulate their own emotions, children become hypervigilant sentries, always scanning, always predicting. Your nervous system learned to read micro-expressions like survival depended on it. Because it did. One wrong word could trigger the storm. Now, decades later, you still flinch at raised voices. Your body remembers what your mind tries to forget. The terror of emotional chaos. You became an emotional weather forecaster, constantly reading the atmospheric pressure of every room, every relationship, every conversation. This hypervigilance is exhausting. You scan faces for signs of irritation. You edit your words before speaking. You shrink before conflict even appears. Jung called this shadow work. The parts of childhood survival that now sabotage adult relationships. Your terror of anger keeps you trapped in people-pleasing. You avoid necessary confrontations. You swallow your needs. You'd rather sacrifice your truth than risk someone's displeasure. This is not wisdom, this is trauma. The irony cuts deep. Your fear of anger. Building on what we covered, there's a third sign that cuts even deeper. You cannot access your own rage. When someone wrongs you, betrays you, exploits you, you feel nothing. Just numbness where fire should burn. This isn't strength. This is psychological amputation. Your rage has been surgically removed. Emotionally immature parents cannot tolerate their child's anger. It threatens their fragile control. So the child learns a devastating equation. Anger equals abandonment. Rage equals rejection. You buried your rage so deep to maintain attachment that you can no longer find it when you need it most. Jung called this the shadow. The disowned parts of yourself, banished to the unconscious realm. Your rage didn't disappear. It's down there in the darkness, festering, growing toxic. When anger has nowhere to go, it turns inward, it becomes depression, it becomes crushing fatigue. You wonder why you're always tired, why you feel heavy, why getting out of bed feels impossible. It's because you're carrying the weight of a lifetime of unexpressed rage in your body. Your nervous system is exhausted from constantly suppressing what wants to explode outward. The tragedy is that healthy anger is your life force. It's your boundary system. Your inner warrior. Without access to your rage, you become a target. Predators can sense your disconnection from your own power. Building on what we've uncovered, there's another pattern that Jung would recognize instantly. You feel crushing guilt every time you try to set a boundary. This guilt isn't natural. It was programmed into you by parents who confused enmeshment with love. Emotionally immature parents don't see you as a separate person. They see you as an extension of themselves. When you were a child, your no was treated as betrayal. Your need for space was seen as rejection. They sold you a lie disguised as love. That real love means endless availability. That boundaries are selfish. So you learn to be everything to everyone. To never say no. To apologize for needing anything. Jung understood this shadow perfectly. The child who learns that love equals self-erasure becomes the adult who can't protect themselves. Every time you try to set a limit, that old programming kicks in. The guilt feels overwhelming. You feel like you're hurting people by having needs. Like you're being cruel by protecting your energy. But here's the truth your parents never taught you. Boundaries aren't walls, they're bridges to authentic connection. When you protect your energy, you show up as your real self. Not the exhausted, resentful version of you. The people who truly love you will respect your boundaries. Those who don't, were never loving you anyway. Your guilt is the ghost of your parents. Emotional immaturity. It's time to stop letting their shadow control your choices. But the patterns run even deeper. There's another way this childhood programming shows up that might shock you. Sign 5 cuts deepest of all. You attract emotional vampires like a magnet draws iron. Jung called this unconscious projection. We magnetize what mirrors our deepest wounds. The needy friend who drains your energy. The volatile partner who explodes without warning. The boss who rages like a child. You find them all. Or rather, they find you. Because dysfunction feels like home. Chaos feels like love. Instability feels familiar. Your psyche recognizes the signature of emotional immaturity from miles away. You become the eternal rescuer. The fixer. the one who saves everyone but yourself. This isn't kindness, it's compulsion. A repetition of your childhood survival strategy. You learned early that your worth came from managing other people's emotions. So you seek out relationships where you can replay that familiar dance of dysfunction. The narcissist feels like the parent you tried to please. The victim feels like the sibling you protected. Jung knew that until we make the unconscious conscious, we remain prisoners of our patterns. Every emotional vampire you attract is your psyche's attempt to heal the original wound. But you cannot heal the past by recreating its pain in the present. Now we reach the final two signs, the ones that reveal how deep this programming truly goes. Sign 6. You feel responsible for everyone's emotional state. Their pain becomes your burden. You walk into a room and immediately scan for emotional distress. Like a radar system you never asked for. When someone is upset, you feel this crushing obligation to fix it. To absorb their darkness. But here's what Jung understood. You're trying to heal your inner child by saving everyone else. Sign 7. You struggle to trust your own perceptions. Your reality feels negotiable. You second-guess your memories, your feelings, your very experience of what happened. When someone challenges your version of events, you immediately doubt yourself. Always. This is what emotional immaturity does. It teaches you to distrust the only witness you'll ever have. But Jung's individuation process offers a way out. A path back to your authentic self. It begins with recognizing these patterns. Naming the shadow that was cast over your childhood. Then comes the hard work. Learning to trust yourself again. To value your own emotional truth. The child who became an adult too soon can finally learn to be both. Vulnerable and strong. Your healing becomes a rebellion against everything that tried to silence your authentic voice. If this opened your eyes, smash that like button and subscribe for more.